up the pace because Fernando is faster. That is 1.0, needs more. Fernando is faster than you. Okay, mate, good luck. Just stick with it now. Sorry. Last traffic ahead.
We see leaves on the asphalt all across the track and creating a very interesting situation with Calvin Wong, who started second, now overtaking Tunya there into second place. This was very tight racing. First thing, the first race this like this, you have no opportunity to come back and make up the place. It gets very, very difficult as these cars light enough to get airborne if you hit the rumble strip a little bit too hard. Towards the end, it was a three-piece race there. Able to all-time winner here, a two-time champion of this series, and more bumping. This is physical racing. These are big cars. This is race one, which took place on Saturday, and it's important to look at the podium here. Darryl Young on the Craig Bear's right, and Marty Lee on his left. These three men would factor again in the following race that took place earlier today. Craig Bear, their confirmation of the win with Darryl Young, Marty Lee, Rodolfo Avila from Macau taking the fourth place with a Mok-Wing Sun.
Singapore, and we're very much looking forward to the start of this Grand Prix, which is now just 35 odd minutes away. Fernando Alonso will start from pole position, and we've got an awful lot of racing to talk about tonight. There'll be 61 laps or 2 hours, whichever comes first. Such a tight scenario in this World Championship, just 5 points between Mark Webber and Lewis Hamilton, and all of the key contenders. First down at the turn 10 chicane at Singapore crashed over the top of those curves pretty aggressively. He's dropped into third. It's the first time in the 3 years that we've been visiting here that Lewis has not started on the front race. Very hard, bumpy, curb-laden work that takes them through the Marina Bay section past the grandstands there. Right here is where Alonso made a mistake earlier in the weekend. They ended up parked up the escape road and couldn't get first gear, had a problem with the gearbox. So we've seen a little bit of gearbox trauma in the Ferrari camp this weekend. Remember, they've used all of their engines going into the final 5 Grand Prix races. This is the final complex of turns. Every millimetre of the way there, and obviously everybody in the Ferrari got
his first run in Q3, so he did that lap twice, which not only underlines the performance of the Ferrari of Fernando, but also
moving out onto the racing circuit as all 24 cars that will make up this field for round 15 of the championship will make their way out onto the circuit. This is the Ferrari of Felipe Massa. F10 is the latest designation, a new engine on the back of that car, so this will be the 9th engine used by the team for that chassis. 2010. Doesn't matter because he's already starting off the rear grid. Here we are inside team latest, that's Jarno Trulli. Vastly experienced career at both Renault and Toyota.
The grid looks spectacular under the lights. I know that's the garage lights, but on the circuit it looks just as good. And it's amazing what the lights do for some of the hues we see on the cars. Particularly the Red Bulls, the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes look absolutely superb. And look for Sebastian Vettel's helmet too. Mark Consadura has very accurately described it as bling comes to drivers' helmets, and on the onboard camera you'll definitely see a new look for Sebastian Vettel under the lights here at Singapore.
So Lotus, I understand, also moving away from the Cosworth engine on the back of their car. You're likely to see them with Renault for 2011.
Yeah, I will see changes at Lotus, a team that's touched the early days of Team Lotus pre-1968.
Now, one of the big differences of the cars since you last saw them, if you were with us here last night, is that for the start of this Grand Prix, they are filled up in order to get them to the end of the Grand Prix. Very different from 2008 and 2009 where they were stopping for fuel. On that basis, and these are very...
This is an incredibly hot physical race for the drivers, isn't it? Just talk us a bit about the preparation. preparation that they've had for this event?
The preparation, to be honest, is quite essential because really they need to prepare for the environment. The only way to do that is to actually be in the environment itself, but inside the cockpit is obviously very difficult to replicate, but training here for within the heat that is here is absolutely essential.
And how much fluid do you expect them to lose during the course of the race? Because it gets a bit sweaty in that cockpit, doesn't it?
It'll vary between driver, to be honest, but I would say in the region of around 2 kilos, maybe more.
Do you have like special protective vests that they're wearing on the grid?
Yeah, cooling vests, which will help keep the body temperature around its about 37 degrees, which is normal temperature. But obviously, when they're actually in the cockpit, you know, the temperature 50 to 60 degrees.
Simon?
Thank you, Louise. And Louise and John Smales are down working away in the pit paddock and grid area at the moment. Just going back to that remark about fuel loads, you're talking about in the order of around about a 200 litre fuel load going into this race, which represents roughly 150 odd kilograms. So these cars will be 25% heavier than they'd be in normal mode, where we saw everybody with an extreme focus a lot of the time in the last 2 days looking to make one perfect lap. Now they've got to make 61 perfect laps. It's the equivalent of having 2 extra passengers in the car, and it dramatically changes the behaviour of the car, and in particular they've got to be very, very careful of the way they treat the tyres because brakes here have been shown to be a problem in years gone by. We had a did not finish result for Mark Webber last year as a result of brakes. We had lots of warnings. Braun Grand Prix last year, their drivers were being warned about excessive brake temperature and wear. That is something that we'll pay careful attention to tonight. Keep an eye out on those remarks.
Yeah, absolutely right, Neil. Rob Smedley, if everything was okay, and he gave him a thumbs up, so we know that Felipe Massa's new engine feels fine. And also I thought it was interesting to see Sebastian Vettel, which was a sweet result, you could say.
So the pit lane will close in just a fraction under 5 minutes. So Massa doing another installation lap in the Ferrari here, and then at 14 minutes to 8 o'clock we'll have the national anthem, and then precisely 8 o'clock this evening the Grand Prix will get underway. I suspect that Felipe may well go back into the pit lane here. He's got the choice. Perhaps another opportunity to offload data from the car and just ensure that everything's okay. And he does go back in
Really hard to cure that water leak in the well, we got 2.5 minutes until the pit lane is closed, so a little bit of a drama there.
Just looking at Massa's car from the back there, and evidence of just the floor and the skid block striking